This is Crew Tales, Life in the Circus. In the motion picture world, there are an army of dedicated professionals who work behind the scenes to make the movies and shows we watch today. I'm Brad Hodson, and I've spent over 30 years in the motion picture industry. This podcast celebrates the people who make the magic behind the scenes. Hey, welcome to the circus. Today, we're pleased to have director Polly Pierce join us. Polly, welcome to the circus.
Thank you.
In your words, as a director, what do you do? In your words.
I think of it as like bringing, like almost like a conductor of an orchestra. Like you bring all the pieces together. So you bring your team. So you bring like a production designer, your composer, your producers on board. Like all these like awesome creative individuals with the common goal of creating a worthy, entertaining, engaging piece of like entertainment.
And how would you describe your journey thus far? What are your beginnings? When did you know you wanted to be a director, for example?
It's a long journey to get to directing for me. Because funnily enough, I started out in camera department, and I started out, almost 20 years ago, working in Australia in the camera department, and then came over to Vancouver, Canada about 12 years ago, and continued that journey of working on union shows and big shows. And then basically it wasn't until about, I'd say like 5 years ago was when I actually was like, hey, I would like to direct and see if I can do it. So I took time away from doing some jobs as a camera assistant and self-funded my first film, and which is like a little funny supernatural dark comedy called Witchcraft. And I just thought to self-fund it to give myself the opportunity to see if I could sink or swim and be able to direct the piece. And like I said, bring on all these like cool creatives to be able to help bring the project to life. And then the film did really well. We shot it right before the world went funky with COVID, and did post during that lockdown period. And it went out into the festival circuit, and we got into like 40 plus international film festivals and won 11 awards. So I was like, okay, I think I can kind of do this job. And then I was lucky that got attention with like getting an agent and getting my next little short film job, which then also hit the festival circuit and did really well, and like went into like 20 international film festivals and won like 6 awards, including the best director. And then, that just rolled on to getting some cool little spec pieces for upcoming TV shows to direct, and different like cool programs like to work on, like getting selected for like the Warner Brothers directing program in the US. So so I'm like, okay, maybe I can do this.
Tell us a bit more about that Warner Brothers director program.
Oh, it's an interesting program. It's really good. Basically, it started, what I'm aware of, its history is that it started off as like the CW Directors Workshop. And it was in that glorious time period that we in film in Vancouver know of, like the CW Warner Brother superhero TV shows. So the program provided upcoming directors an opportunity to shadow and then to direct an episode. And at that time, it was really great because we had the proliferation of all the superhero shows. Now with, I feel like all the business doings that's happening with Warners and how they separate from CW, like those opportunities are a little bit more rarer these days, but the program is still going because they're committed to bringing, new talent up in the ranks of the Warner Brothers family is what it's called. And so I'm part of that program, and we've just been like doing in-person and virtual classes and really finessing our directing practice. So that way we can be like top of the range network TV directors, and know how to utilize our time well instead of scratching our heads like running a professional set, like an indie set. Like we now have all the proper technique behind us to be able to go into a set and command it and lead it well and with authority.
And I imagine being a director, the competition's quite fierce. So it's probably not just handed to you. It's quite hard.
Yeah. It's definitely like, even if you're really talented, what I've noticed is it comes down to luck, right? It's obviously like networking and friendships that you have. And it does come down to luck, I guess, whether, as silly as this sounds, about whether someone's having a good day or not, and whether like you vibe with that person. So when I've done interviews for like jobs, like for the comedy and the drama series, spec teasers that I directed, it's just whether or not you gel with that producing team. Because yeah, your boss are the producers on board of the project. Like most people have the misconception that the director's the head of the show, but it's like, no, the producers are the guys which are really running it, and you're their employee. So it all just goes down to like whether the vibe is good between you guys and that you guys can, you know, creatively solve a problem, which is how do we bring this script to reality, into production and into post. So yeah, so I think it's like, you know, it's hard, but it's also when it flows, and it doesn't need to be a constant stress. And I've been lucky where it hasn't been a constant stress. It's been I've gelled and vibed with the producers, and I've brought on good people on my teams, and we've had issues come up because that's what all, you know, film sets have, but it's about how you resolve those issues and working as a team together. And yeah, just knowing that you're in it for, like, you know, a common good. It's not your ego trip.
So you don't just sit back and wait for the phone to ring. You work quite hard on making your own projects come to fruition. Tell me a little more about that.
Yeah, that's true. Like basically, I feel like you have to be a bit crazy and a bit passionate about this. Like it's not 9 to 5. Like you don't check out. Like you know, and be able to go. There's like, oh, party tonight. I'm going to go to that. And like it's a passion where you're constantly trying to generate your own work. Like you need to have that drive and that initiative. So basically what I find I do now is I'm writing like scripts, like feature film scripts. I'm trying to write like pilot scripts for ideas I have, write pitch decks to be able to submit to distributors, to production companies and producers. And then applying for funding grant, like grant applications. Yeah, if anything, the complaint I have in this process is that you find that you spend more time writing these grant applications rather than being creative. And in one project I have, it's like I have my pitch deck, I have, you know, like I have some like people attached to it, like my TV writers and a production company. But have I written the script? No, because I've been spending so much time trying to get together my team, and also trying to get together just like the bones of it, and trying to write these applications funds. So it's funny that everything else is there except the actual script. And what's the thing that matters in the end? It's the script. So I'm going to be changing that soon. I'm giving myself some time to like step away from the application writing just to get the script. So one day when producer Joe Blow is like, hey, what happens on page 33? Is that your turning point? I'll be able to say yes or no affirmatively.
Not a lot of creativity in filling out grant forms, I take it.
Nope.
Talk to me a little bit about some of your influences, whether they be directors or movies, or what draws your passion to be a director, and share some of those thoughts.
Like influences, like I think it's to do with like subject matter. I like stories where you can like think and feel. So I'm drawn to the works of directors like David Lynch, which like a lot of people always get surprised because I seem quite bubbly and effervescent, and yet I'm like all for this really quirky, dark director. But I like his work that he has like many tones in it, like from, you know, completely absurdist, and, you know, he has some violence and like darkness, but he also has these like crazy funny moments of levity as happen. So I like that juxtaposition of like tone that he investigates in his stories. And I also like stuff like, you know, musicals, like Singing in the Rain's like one of my favorite films of like all time, just because it's just this beautiful, effervescent little like piece of wonder, right? And you know, like I think it's like stuff that keeps influencing me is yeah, like even like I read a lot too, fun, like because you get like inspired from all art forms. Like I think if you're just watching film and TV, then your perspective, that's only one slice of like the art pie. Whereas if you're broadening that and you're looking at art and you're seeing how, you know, like for like it's almost like cliche when you're looking at how like Rembrandt uses color and light and whatnot to create like a visual environment and tone in that. So you need to have that information to help you as a director, and also take from like reading literature and reading plays. Like some of my favorite like reading lately has been going back into reading like Tennessee Williams plays. Like Streetcar Named Desire is freaking amazing, like the dialogue and the characterization. And so that's a huge lesson to be able to influence being a director, to be able to create the relationships with like the characters, and then also being able to relate to the actors in real life, because they want to be able to see what you've been grabbing from like for inspiration to be able to influence their art practice, which is them acting.
What you're just describing now, is that something, some of the more favorite parts of being a director, working with the actors? Like,
Yeah.
tell me some more of those.
Yeah. Actors are brilliant. Like, funnily enough, I see two sides of it where being a camera assistant, you kind of, you're clocking in the hours and like, you're just like, oh my gosh, like, why are we on this? Why are we doing 8 takes of this? And like, admittedly, I even asked, like, why are we doing 8 takes of this? But like, when you give the actors the floor and the space to actually feel that moment, like, hopefully it's a really compelling scene where they can actually express and do their magic. It's like a wonderful thing. I've been on set as like back in the day as a camera assistant. I remember like watching, let me think, like seeing people like Willem Dafoe on Daybreakers, like breaking down the scene, and like he's questioning the director, and then he's talking to like Claudia Carvan and Ethan Hawke to really work out the mechanics of that scene and like what the blocking is. And like, it was just beautiful to see that sort of like motion happen, I think, and seeing what they're bringing to it and their individual perspective and experiences. So I like that. And then I've had one of those like golden moments as like, I've had a couple of them as a director, but one that really comes to mind is on this like dramedy film that I directed called Slump. It was this moment where it is a really dramatic moment. This girl has been like sexually assaulted, and she's dealing with the aftermath of that. And basically, it was a space where the scene was where the character is finally able to feel like all the anger and the hurt that she's got. So, and she's like listening to this podcast that's telling her what a slump buster is. So, like, a slump buster is someone who is deemed unattractive that an underperforming player, for example, will have sex with, and to get them out of performance slumps. So that's how she's been sexually assaulted. And like, for her just to see that wave of realization come across her face, and you're watching it, and then I'm also trying to like, get her in the zone. And it was literally on the day, it was just the actress, it was me and my DP in the room, and we got the set to be all quiet, and everyone was really respectful, and she was just able to feel and be in that moment, and it was really beautiful. And it's like the moment that everybody's heart breaks when I've been at the festivals watching it, and everyone comes up to me afterwards. And it's great to see that what I felt on the day actually comes across on the screen like months, years after we shot it, and people are touched by it. So that's the goal of directing, to be able to, touch people.
It's brilliant. You say you love actors. Tell me, I hear a lot. I've watched a lot of this on YouTube and with major motion pictures and that. Table reads. So the director, for example, who wrote the script, you hear they find out so much when they just sit down way before shooting starts and just go through the script, and they learn and glean so much out of the actors that can take the script to the next level. What are your thoughts on that?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. Table reads are amazing. Like, the funny thing is, I've noticed that a lot of like network shows don't necessarily do it. So whether you're looking at the schedule and like you're seeing that they're not scheduling it anymore, and then you see the shows that are scheduling it, and if you're able to participate in it, like, you see that it definitely helps work out the flow of the script. And personally, with like my projects, when I've done, like, I always insist on rehearsals and table reads. And like, the table read is amazing because you start to see like your casting come to life, and like to see if everybody can gel, and see if like what you thought you saw in the, the self tapes, and then when you had them like talking to you on like in their own individual rehearsal, if it all works, like that chemistry you're trying out, and you're also seeing if the script flows, like if the story is makes sense, so it logically flows. And then the dialogue, oh my gosh, dialogue. But yeah, so it's this magic moment just to sort of like breathe life, like you're like putting the paddles on your script's chest, and you bring life into it. So yeah, it's a magical moment.
Unlike magical moments, what are some of the moments in your career that were a little less fun? Want to share?
Oh, well, like, directing has always been fun, so it's not that. It's probably been when I've been camera assisting. That's probably the moments where it's not been as fun. And it's like, it comes down to sometimes the relationships with other people, other crew members on set, whether your team works well with the rest of the team or yourself. Like, it's usually like those sort of internal like personality conflicts that can arise. And then, and then also sometimes it's just the conditions and the days. Like some shows you're doing ridiculously long hours. Like I was telling a friend this morning, like there was a particular show where, you're technically supposed to break for lunch after 6 hours of after breakfast, right? But then they push to like the max meal penalty. So you're not actually sitting down having a proper meal until 9 hours later. And, you think about the real world with people's jobs, and people have long gone, had breakfast, lunch, and they're about to go and have dinner.
Yep.
So I think it's like those stressors, which is the main issue. Yeah. So just like, it's physical issue, stress, as well as like, working with people. And then I've had, unfortunately, with the working with people thing, I have had the unfortunate experience of like experiencing like sexism and racism. So it doesn't kind of suck. It actually really sucks because it's like 2024. It's like we should be more mature to just respect everybody and, recognize the humanness in each other. But, people are still trying to draw lines. And, I get that it's like such a intense work environment that we're working in, but it's like I think it's such a low call to like bring up like demarcation things to create divisions amongst people, unnecessary divisions.
Fair enough. I'd like to think that things are getting better. I mean, it's not just the film industry. I think all industries have their fair share of sexism and racism. I like to think that things are changing. I know in our industry, in the film industry, I do see a positive change than 20 years ago when I was in it. Again, I'm not a woman in the camera department, so I don't know some of those traumatic experiences that women have to go through or have gone through. I like to think that it is improving a bit. What are your thoughts on?
I think, I do feel like the same. Like, because, like I said, like similar to you, I started 20 years ago, and it was very boy zone. And I'm not referring to the Irish boy band either. It was such a bro zone, the camera department, and like I remember having to try and make myself fit in. So I feel like I'm quite a feminine, soft, good-natured person. And then I remember these were very boys. And it was like, I had to like, it's like code switching, I think is the term, where you have to sort of blend in. So I blend in by watching Top Gear or watching Family Guy so I could have like the same conversation as the boys, right? And then luckily I was able to, find like what you term your film family, like people you actually vibe and gel with really well. And I didn't need to code switch anymore. I could actually just be authentically myself. And I think that's it's a positive thing when you can find that and where you fit in and then be your authentic self, because you're not having to try and filter yourself. You can actually be authentically yourself and be able to give your all when you're working. And I feel like, even though I mentioned the issues of like sexism and racism, the good thing is that's more like the one bad egg that's wrecking the rest. The rest of it is brilliant. And like, I think film people are like, we're really passionate, interesting people, and we're brilliant, right? Like there's like, it's not just clocking in, clocking out. Like we're there because we want to contribute and we love that teamwork and the camaraderie. Done. Exactly. Yeah. Right. Like there's a common goal that you can feel of most people in films. So that's brilliant. And I wouldn't change that for anything. It's just, it's unfortunate. Those few bad eggs are the ones that wreck it for everyone.
That's true. I mean, the good part about working on projects is film people come together on day one, make a movie as a group. They all know their part. But it's only temporary.
Yeah.
And even if it's on a series, eventually they disband and move on to something else. So if you're having a rough day or a rough time of it, short of quitting, you know that it's only temporary. And that's one thing I do admire about film people is they do want to get the job done. They know their craft and they just want to elevate the project to the best level they can possibly do.
Yeah, no, I agree.
One thing I have noticed, Polly, over the years, I'm a 30-year veteran of the film industry, way more women in all departments, grip, electric, not just hair and makeup anymore. So it's exciting to see. And as a woman, are you finding, in your opinion, more opportunities for people of color, women, etc.?
Yeah, like definitely. Like it's not just the bro zone anymore. It's like you're definitely seeing like more diversity, whether that is more women, like specifically there is more women. It's like almost, I feel like 40-60 or 50-50 in some cases, right? Like there's that representation is definitely strong in film. And I think it like having that balance also helps to create a more even keeled set, which is really great. And I feel like I mean, I guess even in the real world, like that's what helps as well, like having a more balanced workplace, right? Like there's some jobs where you hear there's more women than men, so even having that off kilter, less men, isn't healthy either, right? So it's really great that film has changed to have more like women involved. And more recently we're seeing like the lens being put on having like diverse people, as in having like LGBTQ represented, as well as having racialized people. And like it's great to see more of that happening as well. So like opportunities, like they are definitely presenting themselves, but it does also depend whereabouts. Like what I'm noticing is that like I remember reading actually a few years ago an article by The Guardian, and like the woman, the writer, she was talking about her time as a racialized writer in a writer's room over there. But she got in there as part of like a writing program. But basically once the program finished, she was out, and she's just like, what if like she was hiring, if she was the top writer, then basically what I'm trying to get at is she was saying change needs to happen at the top, not just from the top. So to create those opportunities, instead of just having the usual gatekeepers that we're all familiar with, which predominantly it's like older male, like white males. If it was to have like a racialized woman, or just even having a woman at the top, you would see more diversity and like those opportunities open. And like that's definitely something that's happening. Like recently I was out on The Last of Us, and they have a female cinematographer, and I think their camera team is like pretty, it's diverse. Like there's diverse races, there's like diverse like there's women out on the team, which is really great. It's not just a bro zone. So that's really positive to see that. And actually it's like both those cinematographers, which is a really interesting thing. Like they alternate DPs, and both of them are females. So that's super cool to see. Yeah, and then just the diversity thing, it's like to expand upon that, like as much as we're saying that, like, yes, there's opportunities more for women and racialized and queer filmmakers, like especially these programs that try to target, and like that's what's being pushed out into the media and into the film world, saying, oh, there's all these opportunities. And that's where I feel like a lot of people who don't tick those boxes are feeling slighted. They're like, if only I had the same opportunities as those people. But being a box ticker where I'm like a woman and racialized, like I have to say, it's still competitive. It's so competitive. Like personally, this year I've had some rejections for grant funding, and you feel it because I'm putting like all my effort and energy into my projects, and I'm like, please like it, I like it, my friends like it. Why can you not like it? But but that's the thing. It's like this slice of the pie that's being offered to the diversity groups. It's so small, and we're all fighting each other for it. So as much as, yes, here's the little pie, here's an opportunity, but even then, all the diverse folks are all going for it. So it's really, it's kind of, it's almost catch-22. Like, yep, the opportunity's there, but the opportunity is so small being given to diverse people that it's like we're all fighting each other. And then, the diverse people are fighting each other, and then like the people who don't box tick are fighting us. And it's like we're all struggling. We're all trying to get like our dreams fulfilled, right? That's the commonality in like this very special, like specific situation, weirdly enough.
Right. And it's tough in the industry right now, Polly. As you know, we had COVID, and that shut everything down, shut the world down.
Mm.
And then when COVID came back, it picked up quite quickly. And then we had all the strikes, and that slowed things down. And there's a possible strike coming up. It's just the industry is quite tentative right now, so it's difficult for everybody. And I talk to my colleagues who are saying, diverse people and women are getting more opportunity. That's not the case. It's hard for everybody right now,
Yeah.
and it'll always be hard because people are going after the same dreams,
Yeah.
and hopefully there'll be more opportunity coming up once the industry starts to get more onto its feet. So, Polly, what's next for you? Do you have any projects coming up? And if I had a magic wand and said, okay, Polly, in next 2, 3, 5 years, here's where you're going to be. Fill that in for me.
Okay. I'm working on a few projects right now. Like I said earlier, I'm taking some time out so I can actually just focus on writing that feature film script. 'Cause that's the thing I keep cheating myself out of. So I need to take the intentional space to not worry about like, where is the next paycheck coming from? Blah, blah, blah. Like I've already got a little plan to be like, okay, I'm going to be safe and secure for X amount of time so I can actually just go away and invest time and energy into writing that script and getting it done. So writing a feature film script. I also want to really polish off like a pitch deck for a TV series, and I'm seeking investment from like angel investors or funders in the US, because I feel like we're kind of exhausting our resources in Canada. So I'm just gonna like reach out abroad, and also to like my home country is Australia, hence the accent, and even just see if Australia can help out somehow, like be able to perhaps like do a co-pro with them, like, which would be a great idea. So sort of like looking at my issue, which is needing funding to get my project going. And because I have my little team, like my creative producer, production company, and television writers, and now it's about actually getting the funds, getting the impetus to get it made. So hopefully that's something that will come up. But I also want an instant gratification win. So I'm writing an idea that I've had for a while, which is a children's, like an illustrated children's book. So yeah, and I've literally just finished like a pitch deck to get the illustrator that I want on board, and I sent it to him yesterday. So hopefully we can start like putting some notes together and start getting that together, and then learning about what the publishing world presents. And yeah, I don't know, it's like there's a couple of things in the pipeline. And then to look into the future in 5 years' time, oh, I would love to be like, I think everybody, right? Just working in film. I'd love to be a producing director on a TV series. It'd be awesome if it was my TV series, because mine's, I think it's worthwhile. It's called GU. It's a supernatural dark rom-com, because I haven't seen the blend of those genres together. And it's about like a Chinese Canadian woman's misadventures in modern dating with a supernatural twist. Like, what else would you
Covers
ask
a lot
for,
of the bases,
right?
doesn't it?
So it'd be awesome if that actually got picked up and was able to just work on that, because I can picture like, you know, having cool people on board, and we'd just be having like a great laugh on set, and then delivering this funny little quirky show, and you know, out onto like onto like either a web space or onto streamers and stuff. But yeah, ultimately it'd be nice to be a producing director on a series, because I've seen how that position has been on set, like from like Greg Smith on Superman and Lois, how he's like been able to craft this show, and Karen Gaviola, who's like a role model of mine. So she's like a industry DGA director veteran, and she's been like, you know, producing director on like, I think it was like Magnum PI or 5-0 in Hawaii, and over here on Debris and Colony back in the day. So to see what she brings to that role and how she influences it as well, like creatively and even the logistics, like that's what's inspired me to also want to do that. So yeah.
On that note of mentorship,
Yeah.
what advice would you give to anyone up and coming who wants to be a director, wants to follow your footstep perhaps, and in particular, women and people of ethnicity?
Mm-hmm. Like you just got to do it. Like that's the thing. It's like you can say for so long, like, oh, I wish I could do it. And yeah, like I have to admit, like I had some pretty shitty behavior in myself, where as a camera assistant, I'd watch on set and I'd see a director and I'd be like, and you know, secretly in my head thinking, I feel like I could do better. But you know, instead of me just thinking it and saying it and, you know, having that little bit of like tension in me, it's like, no, you actually just got to do it. You've got to prove it. And hence why I sunk a ton of money into that first film, to see if I could sink or swim. And I swam, which was really it was really encouraging. So I think, yeah, for people up and coming, you've just got to try it. If you've got that idea, like try and write it. You can shoot a film on an iPhone. I've done a little like pandemic rom-com on an iPhone, and it was brilliant. It was brilliant not to have 50 crew members and just have like my iPhone and the two actors' iPhones, and we did it remotely. And yeah, you can still tell a story that way. Like Sean Baker did Tangerine on an iPhone. So it's like, yeah, even if it is an iPhone and it's a simple setup, like two people talking, like there's so much you can do with two people talking at a table, because they can have an argument. They can be, you know, tension where they're about to kiss or something, or I don't know. It's like, you can just do it. That's the most important thing. See if you can sink or swim. And also, I think a really invaluable thing I've learned is get good people around you, because there's going to be so many naysayers. I've had people where they've been like, oh, I have notes about your film, but I knew that their notes weren't going to be positive and they weren't going to be constructive. I can take bad criticism, but like, stuff where people are saying, hey, this could have been better, and then helping me. But if it's just going to be trying to rip you down, like that's just toxic. And it's also like bad spirit, I think. So I think it's important to get good people around you who you can trust, and they will give you honest feedback, whether you need like a bit of encouragement to do better, or if it actually is good and people can celebrate your wins. And so, yeah, good people around you, whether it's family, friends, crew members, stuff like that. That's super vital, I think, because it's so easy to be disheartened.
True. No, absolutely. Okay, Polly, outside of film, what are some of your other interests?
I like film obviously does take up a lot of the time and the passion, and it's like you don't just, like I said, clock in, like you live and breathe it. But it's also important to have that diversity, to have interest, because it's like when you're old and gray and you can't lift like things, or I don't know, or you're just tired, like you got to have other interests. And also when you have other interests, it's like that fills in your art practice, I'll call it, right? And makes you more interesting, more authentic. So I'll actually get to answer the question now, which is, I've really focused in on running this year. Like I've always ran, but I really wanted to get my technique correct. And
running lessons by chance?
Not running lessons. Actually, I can highly recommend Nike Run Club, which is an amazing app. And yeah, Coach Bennett is amazing. Like I've totally improved. And I did like the Sun Run earlier this year, which was really a big achievement for me, because I hadn't really thought about doing it. I've always been just not really focusing on the technique, and the technique has improved like so many areas of my life, I feel like. And just I love to read. I want to get back into like painting and drawing again. My art practice, visual art practice. And then just even just like hanging out with friends, going for like dinners and coffees is like great and whatnot. Like to keep that social like bone going. I think like it's super important to have your people, right? Yeah, what else do I do? Gosh, I love to swim, but like I find I don't do it so much in Vancouver because pools and there's no beaches here, but being an Aussie, I love the beaches. So I don't know, I need to get down to LA or something again. I don't know. I'm very open to trying out different things, and yeah, that's sort of it's all just keeping an open mindset to like if something happens, it's like sure, I'll try this. I know I went to a dance party with a friend of mine last weekend, which was like super fun. It was like amazing. We were dancing till 4 a.m. and it was amazing.
You were in China recently. I wanted to touch base on that one. Tell us what you were doing there.
So I was selected as part of a filmmaker program called Looking China, and the point of that program is they select like 10 filmmakers from around the world to create cultural enrichment videos of China, which will then go onto the internet. I guess it's to help promote the image of China and, good relations with other countries. Because literally my cohort was 3 Canadian filmmakers, 3 Estonians, 3 Portuguese, and 1 Sri Lankan filmmaker. And we ended up going to a town in Anhui province called Shosian. And my subject was inkstone carver called Hu Bin. And my documentary should have been about the process of how to make an inkstone, but it's literally him carving a stone, and it takes many hours and many days. And I know that there's all this art practice behind it, but he was telling more about his story, and he had a really interesting story where, like any young kid, you were like, I'm going to go to the big city. I'm going to leave my town and make something of myself. But then he talks about the loneliness and the isolation he had in Shanghai, and that he realized that his dad was getting older, and his relationship with his dad is really precious. So to have that realization hit him, and he's like, actually, I need to go back home. I need to be part of my family business, and I need to help bring the tradition of the inkstone's called the Shoyans. So to bring that tradition forward for future generations, I just thought that's the crux of the story. And so I deal with that, and we talk about that in the interview the most. So yeah. And then he talks about the legacy of the Shoyan, because they have this beautiful 2-story museum compound and these beautiful inkstones, which are from the Tang dynasty and the Qin dynasty. So they're hundreds and hundreds of years old. And like you can feel the pride when he's talking about it. Like he's a proud Chinese man and like bringing the show yarn to future generations because they have field trips for kids. It's like, it's brilliant. And so I really loved that sort of human like aspect and human interest part of his story.
Brilliant. Holly, if people want to see some of your work, where can they find it?
I have my website, pollypiercefilm.com, and I'm on Instagram, which is pollypiercefilm, and what else? Vimeo and YouTube. I guess, yeah, you pretty much can search Polly Pierce Film and you'll see me.
Holly, thank you so much for being with us today on the Circus, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Well, that about wraps it up for another episode of Crew Tales, Life in the Circus. I'd like to thank our producers Dustin Schwinnard and Dustin Girton, as well as our technical producer Rob Hunt. I'm Brad Hodson. Thank you for joining us.